Part 86. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 853. Rongjun Wangfu is surrounded by mountains and rivers, and there is a small mountain behind it, and a small stream flows down from the mountain, passes from the northwest corner to the northeast corner, and then turns to the big lake in the east. This is a real big lake, which is said to be 68 mu. It is an auspicious number specially chosen by Qin Fang. There is also a small island in the middle of the lake, only about 7 or 8 acres in size. There is only a small house built, surrounded by trees, and many lotuses are planted in the lake. Willow gazebo. But it was impossible for Mu Yangling to find a place on the shore of such a large lake that was only as deep as the neck of a 2 or 3-year-old child and where he could practice swimming. Chi Heiran also knew that the other party was impossible to find, so he looked at her triumphantly. Mu Yangling was furious, and snorted, "I can't find such a place in the lake. Is it possible that I don't know how to build one? It is not easy for someone with money to build a small children's swimming pool." Mu Yangling coaxed the 3 little ones, patted his chest and said, "Don't worry, I can ask you to swim in the water the day after tomorrow." The 3 children burst into laughter and cheered. Mu Yangling turned around and went to look for the housekeeper. He asked him to find craftsmen and workers, and led them to walk along the shore of the lake. Finally, he chose a place and started digging a swimming pool at a distance of 1 meter from the lake. Because there is a ready-made big lake nearby, Mu Yangling didn't need to dig a big one at all. He just dug the upper and lower water areas according to the height of the 3 children and the little bear. Because of the large number of people and the strength, they dug it that night, and the next day. Early in the morning, the craftsmen filled the bottom of the pool with bluestone slabs, cleaned up the soil on all sides, put water in and rinsed it several times, and a simple swimming pool was ready. Because of the excitement of the swimming pool, Xiaoan temporarily forgot about her father who was about to leave home, and simply lived with the twins instead of going home. Fan Zijin walked up and down in front of his son with a stinky face, and found that he didn't look at him at all. He was only excitedly discussing swimming with the twins, and suddenly became depressed, so he turned around and shook his sleeves and went home. Xiaoan didn't think of her father all day, and went directly to the small swimming pool with the twins hand in hand the next day. Little Bear is also very interested in the swimming pool. After swimming in it twice, he found that it was not as good as the big lake, so he climbed ashore and fell directly into the big lake. The 3 little ones had a great time in the swimming pool, took off their shirts, and the 3 children were playing in the shallow water area. They stood on the bluestone board, the water only reached their chests, and each had a guard watching then, even if the whole person jumps into the water, he is not afraid. Chi Heiran stood aside and watched for a while, making sure that the children would not be in danger before going to the lake to continue practicing. An hour passed, Chi Heiran managed to swim back and forth for about 10 meters, and when he climbed ashore and saw the 3 little ones swimming in the water happily, his mouth opened wide, and his face couldn't hide his astonishment. Chi Heiran turned his head and glared at the guard who taught him how to swim. He felt that it was definitely not his fault, and it could only be the fault of the coach. The 18 or 19-year-old guard stammered, my lord, my concubine is right, children learn much faster. Believe you are a ghost." Chi Heiran turned his head to look at the coach of his sons, wondering if he wanted to change him. But the subsequent facts proved that even though Chi Heiran changed coaches, his progress still couldn't keep up with his 3 sons. Even the cub who was the most thumping and the slowest learner dumped Chi Heiran by a river. That's right, among the 4 children, Little Bear is the fastest learner, while Little Lion is the worst. After 10 days or so, Chi Heiran reluctantly swam to the depths of the lake. Little Xiong and the 3 little ones were eager to try, but not only Chi Heiran, but also Mu Yangling forbade them to go to the deep water area, and they were only allowed to swim in the shallow water on the shore every time. Swimming in the swimming area, and every time there are guards watching from the sidelines. Seeing Mu Yangling's strict requirements, Chi Heiran breathed a sigh of relief. Hearing his breath, Mu Yangling couldn't help asking, "Am I so unreliable in your heart? Do you think I will let them how many swim to the deep water? Isn't it frightened by your attitude that you insist on children learning to swim, and you always say that children must learn faster than adults? Now that you can swim to the deep water area, I wonder if you want the children to swim to the deep water area, in the middle of the lake." "You think I'm stupid," Mu Yangling snorted. "No matter how fast they learn, they are still children. Their physical strength and intelligence are there. Let alone the guards watching, even if the Dragon King is watching, I won't let them go to deep water." Mu Yangling paused when he said this. He didn't want to dampen Chi Heiran's enthusiasm too much, and said, "Actually, you have learned fast enough. Others may have just returned to swim after 10 years. Humph, it's too late to please the Lord now." Mu Yangling looked at his arrogant little appearance, and simply kissed him on the face with a slap, and laughed heartily when he saw his face turn red. Chi Heiran simply hugged her and pressed her on the bed, and stretched out his hand to peel off her clothes. "Dare to make fun of me, I want you to look good." The little lion and the tiger head rushed in with a bang, saw their father pressing on their mother, and immediately shouted, "Kiss! I want to kiss too." After finishing speaking, he rushed forward and jumped on Chi Heiran's back, pressing down on Mu Yangling one by one. Mu Yangling was still a little panicked and wanted to push Chi Heiran away, but when he saw that his face was flushed with anger, he burst out laughing. Chi Heiran glared at Mu Yangling, and warned in a low voice, "Wait, let's see how I deal with you at night." Turning around, he lifted the two little ones on his back to educate him. If the twins are obedient, they won't be called bear children anymore. They yelled loudly and attracted the little bear from the next room. Hearing that they wanted to kiss, he also climbed into bed and asked his parents to treat them equally. He took the lead in holding Chi Heiran's. He kissed her with a slap on the face. Chi Heiran blamed them for not being serious, and at the same time raised the corners of his mouth. After playing with the three children, he held two of them in his arms and carried one on his back to send them back to sleep. After running back again, Chi Heiran educated Mu Yangling, "The children are getting older, we can't let them kiss us anymore. What does it look like to outsiders? How long do you think this kind of life will last? When they grow up, if you ask them to kiss you again, they won't kiss you anymore." Mu Yangling said, "They kiss you now because they want to be close to you. Kissing is knowing the ways of the world. Unless we can have another one right now, or in 2 or 3 years, who will still be willing to kiss you?" Chi Heiran snorted and said, "Little Xiong is now 6 years old and willing to kiss his grandfather. It's not like you don't know that Xiong is a late maturer. He can only speak when he is 3 years old, and now he is more immature and mature than children of the same age. And, didn't you just ask the kids not to kiss you?" Chi Heiran lifted the quilt to cover his head, and said, "Sleep, tomorrow my master will follow Zijin to drink farewell wine." "Humph, just say what you mean." The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 854. Fan Zijin will leave for his post in a few days. He has many friends in the capital, and he has been dragged to various farewell banquets for several days. There is no way, let alone the friendship between each other, only Fan Zijin is now being reused. Let them try to befriend him. Chi Heiran was going to help Fan Zijin block the wine. Everyone was even more excited when they saw the king of Rongjun came. The wine was poured into his mouth as if he didn't need money, and he went home full of alcohol every day. Mu Yangling was worried and annoyed, so he stayed at home every night waiting for him to come back to drink hangover soup, and took pains to make him a medicinal meal for nourishing the stomach and liver. When Chi Heiran saw him go out to drink with him, Mu Yangling worked harder than him. When he went out again, he no longer refused to drink, but asked for a change of tea after drinking 2 cups. Fan Zijin wanted to drink, but was rejected by Chi Heiran. Stop it, after a banquet, he was the only one who didn't drink a drop. The two completely different reactions of Rong Junwang naturally aroused everyone's speculation. You must know that Rong Junwang is very fond of wine. Before they came up to pay respects, he would drink happily, even if An Kuagong persuaded him it's useless. Why did he change his temper the next day, and even offered to ask someone to replace the wine with tea? Many people present love tea, and Fan Zijin is one of them, but if you say that Chi Heiran loves tea, don't say they don't believe it. Even if you just bring someone from the street, it is impossible for the other party to say that King Rong loves tea. So everyone suspected that it was the concubine who made the move. Everyone knew that the king of Rongjun was afraid of guilt. For that Princess Rongjun who doesn't go out often and doesn't like to socialize, everyone is very impressed. Chi Heiran can treat her like a day for 10 years. She has 3 children and doesn't take a concubine or a concubine. I don't know how powerful the concubine Tongfang is, since the other party doesn't want them to drink more Chi Heiran wine, they can only stop regretfully. It is better to be favored by Princess Rongjun than to be hated by her. But when others saw that Princess Rongjun hadn't made a move yet, they let go of Chi Heiran, and they all lamented how powerful Princess Rong was. Unknowingly, Mu Yangling's unified image in everyone's mind is deep-minded and extremely intelligent. Fan Zijin also asked Chi Heiran, "Aling said you." Chi Heiran was confused. What did Aling say about me? Fan Zijin stared into his eyes and saw that his eyes were really confused, so he withdrew his gaze and said, "Teach you not to drink, otherwise why did you suddenly stop drinking? Didn't you show off to me before that the wine they brought out was full of alcohol, good wine?" Chi Heiran was immediately displeased and said, "Why do you always think of me and Aling in a bad way? Aling treats me well, she knows that I'm out to socialize and must drink, even though I smell of alcohol all over, but she didn't dislike it at all. She made me hangover soup and herbal diet, she was very considerate of course, she also gave him a bath, but I don't need to talk to Zijin about this." Chi Heiran's face was full of complacency, but he made a sigh-like exclamation, "I just can't bear that Aling is so worried about me, and drinking is really harmful to health, so I will drink less." Fan Zijin felt the glaring smugness on his face, and snorted, "It's rare that you know that drinking is harmful to your health. I will tell Aling later that she will stop drinking for you, and take good care of your body. Put away all the wine." Chi Heiran was stunned when he heard the words, and shouted, "Zijin, you can't do this to me." Fan Zijin walked ahead with flick of his sleeves, ignoring him at all. Chi Heiran followed behind and begged for mercy. Aling really wanted to put away all his wine, wouldn't life be less fun? Which accomplished general have you seen who doesn't like to drink? Fan Zijin asked, "Do you know what everyone talks about Aling in private?" Chi Heiran's face turned cold. "Someone dare to discuss Aling in private? They can talk about my wife." They all said that Aling was very scheming and extremely intelligent, and he was not easy to get along with, so when you asked for tea, they thought it was Aling who said something to you, so they responded one after another, otherwise they would be afraid people in a stable world will allow you to substitute tea for wine. Fan Zijin said, "This shows how terrifying Aling is in their minds. They have never met Aling, so why do they say that Aling has a deep mind and is difficult to get along with?" Chi Heiran was indignant. "Aling is obviously easy to talk, kind-hearted, pure-hearted, and extremely smart." Fan Zijin snorted and was non-committal. Although he and Mu Yangling are also friends now, it is impossible for him to think that Mu Yangling's mind is pure, because being extremely smart is never connected with simplicity of mind. At this time, Mu Yangling, who was extremely smart, was beating 5 children with a pointer. Xiaobao and Xiaoxiang were taken special care of by her, and each of them gave 5 more whips. She pinched her waist and pointed the pointer at the 5 children's noses and cursed, "Who told you to go into the lotus bush? Don't you know the depth of the water and the thickness of the mud?" Xiaobao, Xiaoxiang, it's alright for the three of them to understand, but how old are you two? You don't even understand. Little Bear shouted, I can swim now. Mu Yangling whipped him and shouted, is it amazing to be able to swim? There are so many lotus flowers there, the bottom is full of mud, and there are aquatic plants. Many people with good water skills dare not swim there. It's better for you to run, specially went there. Xiaobao said weakly, Auntie, we didn't go into the water, we just took the boat. Still quibbling, the five of you are sitting in such a small boat, how can any of you sit quietly for a quarter of an hour? That boat is not big enough to do 2 somersaults, what if you fall off? Xiaobao really wanted to reach out his hand to show that he could sit quietly for a quarter of an hour, but looking at his aunt who was furious, he wisely didn't say it. Xiaoan poked the little lion, but the little lion poked at the tiger's head, and the tiger's head standing beside him immediately shouted, then it's okay to take a big boat. Both Xiaobao and Xiaoxiang looked at Hutu with admiration. Mu Yangling gritted his teeth and asked, why do you want to go there? Didn't you find a lot of mosquitoes in it? We're not afraid of wearing long sleeves, Hutu shouted, we're going in to pick lotus pods. Mu Yangling said with a dull face, the lotus pods have been picked long ago. If you want to eat them, I will ask someone to go to the street to buy them for you. There are indeed many lotus pods here in East Lake, but they have been picked by the servants long ago and sold by Zhu Liang. Now there are only endless lotus leaves in East Lake that are about to be ruined. But the tiger head shouted, there is more, we have all seen it, if you don't believe me, take a look. Hutu tiptoed and pointed to Hezong's inn, hoping that his mother could see it. Mu Yangling looked at it with a glance, and couldn't see a lotus pod because of the lotus leaves in her eyes, but she believed that there would indeed be lotus pods that slipped through the net, or lotus pods that were not picked off because they were tender, but they were a minority after all, and there is no shortage of lotus pods to eat, so why do you have to go to great lengths to find those lotus pods? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 855. You want to eat lotus seeds, I'll ask someone to go to the street to buy them for you. The 5 children shook their heads together. Xiaoan said, Auntie, we want to pick lotus pods, not lotus seeds. The 3 children stared at her, and Mu Yangling snorted, if you want to go to the deep water area, unless I'm not at home, otherwise, you just stay on the ground for me. Little Bear shouted, I can hold my breath for 50 breaths in the water. The coach said I am very good. Haven't you heard an old saying? Mu Yangling shook his head and dropped his book bag, those who are good at water will drown in the water. Now you can barely be regarded as good at water and you are already so arrogant. How can I let you go? The little bear didn't understand the old saying, so he turned to look at Xiaobao, and Xiaobao said with admiration, Auntie is talking about the Nanhua Sutra, which reads a good rider falls on a horse, a good waterer drowns in water, and a good drinker gets drunk in water. Wine, good fighters are killed because they have lost their sense of awe and fearlessness, so accidents are more likely to happen. Xiaobao explained the meaning of the sentence, turned his head and said to his 4 younger brothers, you have learned to swim, so you think that places with water are not scary, just swim well, but the best swimmers often die of water, you are not capable enough, but you are already so arrogant, naturally Auntie will not let you go. The little bear raised his head and looked at his mother eagerly, Mother, we are not arrogant anymore, can we go? Mu Yangling snorted twice, thinking that she would believe her after saying a few words. Let's dream. Mu Yangling resolutely disagreed, turned around and left. Little Bear and the twins were about to roll over and beg for permission. Xiaoan pulled the hands of Little Lion and Tiger Head. The twins immediately calmed down. Little Bear noticed the abnormality, and looked back at the three. The younger brother glanced at him and said nothing. Mu Yangling only thought that they had surrendered, and ordered everyone to look after them, not allowing them to enter the water or board the boat, turned around and left. The 5 children saw that Mu Yangling was far away, so they gathered together to discuss, and when they saw the people staring at them, the 3 young ones went to chase them away, waving their hands and saying, "Go, go, go out a little bit." After driving people away from a certain distance, the 5 little heads came together, and Xiaobao said regretfully, "Let's forget about it, Auntie is watching us." "No," Little Bear said first, "how can we give up halfway?" The 3 younger ones nodded fiercely, and looked at the 2 elder brothers anxiously. "But my aunt doesn't agree, and someone is watching us, what should we do?" "I have a solution," Xiaoan said triumphantly, raising her small hand. "My father is leaving the day after tomorrow, and 4th uncle and 4th aunt will definitely see him off. When the time comes, we—" A few children whispered together, but no one heard what they said. The servants were worried all day long, for fear that the masters would suddenly make a big fuss, but until His Royal Highness left in the afternoon, the 5 children, the master didn't do anything to embarrass them. Although he was still mischievous enough to want them to meet and commit suicide, what he was still doing was within the tolerance of the prince and princess. All the servants breathed a sigh of relief, but Mu Yangling only thought that her reasoning had convinced the children, so she didn't take this matter to heart. In the evening, when Chi Heiran came back refreshed, Mu Yangling was very happy, so he spent some time with him and even forgot about the day's events. After dinner in the evening, everyone went back to their respective homes. Chi Heiran sent 8 guards to Fan Zijian, all of them were good hands, and he was thinking about whether he should discuss with Fan Zijian when he saw off tomorrow, and he would transfer a few people from his side to Xiao Xia's side, so as to protect the safety of their mother and child. And what Mu Yangling was thinking about was how to comfort Xiao Xia tomorrow. The husband and wife had only been reunited for a month before they were separated again, and she didn't know how she would cry. So they didn't see the 3 children who were winking behind them. Fan Zijian set off at Mijeng, 6 o'clock in the morning, so Chi Heiran and Mu Yangling got dressed and went to the city gate to see him off at Mijeng. Xiao Xia came out with Fan Zijian, and the group sent him to the 10-mile-long pavilion, and only bid farewell when the sun rose. Seeing that Xiao Xia's eye circles were red, Mu Yangling stood beside her and patted her hand. Fan Zijian and Chi Heiran touched their fists, turned around to look at Xiao Xia, and said in a low voice, "Take good care of her, Xiaoan, and the family. I will call someone to pick you up after I settle down there." Xiao Xia responded in a low voice. Fan Zijian looked towards the direction of the capital and sighed quietly, that brat was so clingy some time ago, why didn't he want to finish with him these 2 days? Going out early and returning late every day is busier than a grown-up like him. Fan Zijian also thought about it for a moment, patted Chi Heiran on the shoulder, and said in a low voice, "Help me take care of Xiaoan. Don't worry, I will teach him like my own son." Thinking of Little Bear and the twins, Fan Zijian opened his mouth, but in the end he didn't say anything against it. After thinking about it, he had nothing to say, so he turned around and walked to the carriage, waving his hand as a farewell. The 3 of them watched Fan Zijian's carriage disappear, then got into the carriage and walked back slowly. Mu Yangling looked at the sky and said, "It's already time, 9 o'clock in the morning, we have to leave quickly, otherwise it will be uncomfortable when the sun is too high." Seeing that Xiao Xia was still sad, he hugged her arm and said, "You can't cry anymore, what if you go back and ask Xiaoan to see your eyes," which aroused his thoughts, and he also cried. The child wouldn't stop crying once he started crying. Now he's awake too. I don't know if he's arguing for his parents at home. Xiao Xia said with a strong smile, "That kid has been crazy about playing recently." Before going to bed, he shouted to play with Brother Tigerhead and Brother Little Lion. When he woke up, he opened his hands to ask Brother Tigerhead and Brother Little Lion before he opened his eyes. How can I still think of his father leaving? When I went out today, I told my servants that if he wakes up, he will be sent to your place, and let Xiao Xiang take them to play, he will definitely not cry. Speaking of the children, Mu Yangling also had some headaches. Little Xiang didn't go to school recently, and he was going to play like crazy. I was just talking to our master. I will send him to the palace to study with Xiaobao in 2 days. The twins are also it's time to start practicing martial arts to sharpen their temper, otherwise the palace will make them toss beyond recognition. Talking about the child, Xiao Xia's mood improved. The two were chatting and laughing in the carriage. Qi Heiran sent them back to the palace, and was about to say that he was going to the palace, when he saw Xiaoting stumbling out from the backyard, mouthingly yelled, "It's not good, it's not good, Lord, Empress, young master." They jumped into the water. Sitting on the horse, Qi Heiran rolled his eyes and said, "Won't they dance 40 or 50 times someday?" Since learning to swim, the 3 children have been diving every day. No, the young master and the others jumped off the boat this time, not far from the center of the lake. Qi Heiran and Mu Yangling's complexions changed at the same time. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 856. Qi Heiran immediately flew off the horse, and disappeared in front of everyone after a few jumps. Mu Yangling also jumped off the carriage with Ashua, and followed Qi Heiran to fly to the East Lake with light work. Only then did Xiao Xia lift the curtain with a pale face, and asked, "Where is Xiaoan? Is he with Hutu and the others?" Xiaoting's eyes flickered, and Xiao Xia's body softened. Mother Xia supported her and shouted, "Ma'am, the young master is following someone, everything will be fine, and the prince and concubine have also passed by." Xiao Xia pushed Nanny Xia away, gritted her teeth, climbed out of the carriage and ran towards the East Lake. Nanny Xia and others hurriedly followed behind her. At this time, Qi Heiran had already arrived at the East Lake. Looking at the vast water waves, Qi Heiran only felt his eyes darken. He shook for a while, and concentrated on seeing the painted boat in the center of the lake and the people undulating in the water. He tapped his toes, and with the help of the elasticity flying to the center of the lake, Mu Yangling saw Qi Heiran stepping on the water and lotus leaves and flying towards the center of the lake from a distance. I picked the longest stick, jumped on the bamboo raft, and with a skillful hand, the bamboo raft flew forward with the wind and waves. At this time, Xiao Xiang pushed Xiaoan onto the boat, and looked back to see that there were only search and rescue guards on the water, and there was no tiger head figure at all. He only felt the cold coming from his heart, and his hands and feet were icy cold. Xiao Bao hugged the wet lion cub, and shouted at the bear, "What are you still doing in a daze? Go find the tiger head, he just sank from your place, go down and look for it." Little Xiang came back to his senses, took a deep breath, closed his mouth tightly and then sank down. The guards at the side couldn't stop them, so they could only follow with their breath held. Something might have happened to the second young master, but the palace couldn't lose his son. The little lion stretched out his foot to kick Xiaobao, crying, "I want to find my brother, let me go, let me go." Qi Heiran flew onto the painting boat, glanced with red eyes, saw Xiaoan sitting on the boat, and asked the woman beside him with red eyes, "Where are the son and the second young master?" The mother-in-law knelt down on the ground. "The second young master has sunk into the water, and the son has gone down to find someone." Qi Heiran shook his body and asked, "Where did it sink? How long has it been sinking?" The mother-in-law was at a loss for words. Looking at the ordinary water surface, how could she confirm the direction and position in this water? Several guards emerged from the water one after another, and when they saw the prince on the painting boat, they hurriedly shouted, "My lord, the second young master jumped here from the painting boat." Qi Heiran looked at their positions and asked, "Did he jump off by himself?" "Yes," the guard said sadly. Qi Heiran turned his head to look at the little lion. The little lion jumped to his father's feet, pointed to the water and said, "We all jumped there, and then we swam separately. We wanted to swim to the lotus bushes, and the tiger head swam there. It sank when it was about to sink. Dad, brother Xiaoan and big brother went down to look for it, but they couldn't find it, so go and find your brother. Chi Heiran reached out and patted his little head, squinted his eyes to look at the lake, and then cast his eyes in the direction of the lotus bushes. It's okay, your brother must be naughty, he thinks it's fun in the water, and he's secretly staying below to play hide and seek with us. Dad will go down and pick him up now. Chi Heiran quickly took off his clothes and jumped directly from the boat. The guards opened their mouths and shouted in their hearts, "My lord, this is where the second young master disappeared. You jumped in the wrong direction." Just as Chi Heiran jumped down, the little bear rose up from the water, and everyone realized that he had also drifted towards the lotus bushes. Xiaoan and the little lion came back to their senses quickly, and shouted in the direction of the lotus, look there quickly." Xiaobao also understood, and asked people to row the painting boat to the side of the lotus bush. Chi Heiran searched all the way to Hekong. His swimming skills were not superb, and he hadn't even learned to dive. But at this moment, he used his internal energy to dive as fast as possible. When he found that there was nothing there, he continued to move forward. I didn't go up to take a breath until my chest couldn't hold it anymore. He was betting that after his son jumped into the water, he would definitely swim to the lotus bush that he never forgot. If he caught that boy, he would definitely not beat him or scold him, as long as the boy was safe. Chi Heiran's eyes were moist, and the tears mixed with the lake water made his heart ache. There was a lot of movement in the center of the lake, and her ears were sensitive. She heard all the shouts of Xiaoan and the little lion. She didn't come to the center of the lake, but went directly to the lotus bushes. Throwing away the long pole in his hand, he also jumped into the water. As soon as she entered the water, she only stopped for a few seconds to get used to it. She gritted her teeth and dived. The bottom was mud and water plants, and there was no tiger head at all. After a quarter of an hour, Mu Yangling and Chi Heiran met head-on. At this time, they were all silent, and the guards didn't dare to stop and continued to search underwater, but everyone knew that after such a long time, it would be useless even if people were rescued. Mu Yangling's face was full of tears. Chi Heiran reached out to wipe her, gritted his teeth and said, "It will be fine, that kid must be playing hide and seek with us, we can definitely find him, we can." The little bear was floating in the water in the arms of a guard, and when he heard his father's words, he cried, "Wow, Tiger Head, where are you? It's all the elder brother's fault, I will never encourage you again into the water, wow." Xiaoan and the little lion burst into tears when they heard the cries of the little bear, and Xiaobao's eyes were also red, and tears fell drop by drop. The little lion pushed Xiaobao away, pinched his waist and shouted towards the lake, "Hutu, you idiot, you don't even know the way. You're the idiot." A yell came, and everyone was silent, and everyone turned their heads stiffly to look in the direction of the sound. In the lotus bushes, a childish voice shouted, "Obviously I was the first one to arrive. If you lose, you will call me an idiot." "Humph, you are the idiot. You are all idiots." Chi Heiran yelled, "Tiger Head." There was a sound of thumping in the lotus, and Mu Yangling slapped Chi Heiran into the water with a slap, and shouted, "Why are you scaring the child at this time?" Chi Heiran also regretted it, he should have waited for the child to be safe before shouting. The two hurriedly headed towards the lotus bushes, both of them had good hearing, not to mention the tiger head shouted several words, so they had already determined the direction, but inside the lotus leaves are intertwined and it is difficult to swim in. Mu Yangling was worried about the child, and said decisively, "I will step on your feet, you fly in, hurry up." Chi Heiran didn't have time to think, and immediately nodded in response. Mu Yangling dived into the water and grabbed Chi Heiran's feet, threw him out with both hands, and threw himself into the bottom of the lake in the opposite direction. Chi Heiran was thrown out of the water by Mu Yangling, and he landed on a lotus leaf as soon as he lifted his true energy. He rushed forward with all his strength and saw the tiger head flopping around holding a lotus pole. He was overjoyed at the moment, jump over to lift his collar and fly to the painting boat parked outside the lotus bushes. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 857. Put the tiger's head on his knees, let him spit out the water he drank, and he was relieved to see that his complexion was not bad. Chi Heiran patted his buttocks, placed him among the 4 children, and said as softly as possible, "Let the servants change your clothes for you, and I'll pick your mother up first." At this time, Mu Yangling was stuck in the mud at the bottom of the lake. She had exerted too much force just now, and the recoil force directly rushed her into the mud at the bottom of the lake. She felt that it was so unlucky that she landed on a stone, so in order not to hit her head on the stone, she could only stretch her hand back and exert great force, hoping that the reaction force would cancel out the previous force. The momentum and bounced her out of the water, who knew that as soon as her hand touched the object shattered. Not only was she not bounced out, but she sank deeper, and the mud floated up, blurring her vision. Mu Yangling was I can hardly tell the direction. Her hands are supporting hard objects, which let her know that they are not rocks, because she can clearly feel that the objects she used to force just now are not big rocks, but feel like wooden boxes instead, otherwise she would not be alone break it hard, but now the things under your palm are like stones. Who hates putting stones in the box and throwing them into the lake? Suspicious in Mu Yangling's heart, she couldn't help but think for a while, and realized that the oxygen was about to run out, and her foot stepped on a hard place at this moment. She subconsciously grabbed a handful of stones, kicked her feet and floated up. Chi Heiran he just went into the water and found her. Seeing that Mu Yangling was uncomfortable, he hugged her and gave her a sigh of relief, and then floated up the lake together. As soon as the 2 of them came out of the water, Mu Yangling couldn't help but take a big breath. Chi Heiran stretched out his hand to push back the hair on her forehead, and asked in a low voice, "Are you okay?" Mu Yangling shook his head, put his hand on his arm, and Chi Heiran stared at the thing she was holding. "Where did you get the gold nugget?" It was only then that Mu Yangling saw that what he was grabbing was actually 4 or 5 gold nuggets that were only 1 finger long. Mu Yangling was dumbfounded, pointed to the water and said, "I caught it below." The 2 looked at each other, thinking of the treasury silver that Qin Fang had moved away. Chi Heiran said, "The treasury is full of official silver and gold ingots and gold bars made according to the system. It is impossible to have such a short gold bar." In other words, the one in Mu Yangling's hand did not meet the conditions. "But Qin Fang can keep this kind of gold bar at the bottom of the lake, won't she throw other gold and silver at the bottom of the lake too?" Chi Heiran immediately took the gold bar in her hand into his own, and said, "Don't say anything beforehand, I'll find some people with good water quality to go down and have a look." Mu Yangling nodded. At this time, apart from 5 children, there were only 3 women standing on the board of the painting boat, and all the guards were sent away in small boats. There was no way, the princess was soaking in the water. Do you see the princess coming out of the water? You must know that it is only the end of summer and the weather is still hot. The clothes everyone is wearing must not be too thick. Once the water soaks and the clothes are close to the body, if they look at something they shouldn't look at, the prince will dig out their eyeballs. Chi Heiran was fortunate to have sent those guards away early, and the only ones who saw him holding the gold bars were the 3 women. As for the children, Chi Heiran gritted his teeth, he hasn't settled today's score with them yet. As for the vow that he made in his heart not to fight, scold, or pursue, Chi Heiran is a scoundrel, and he didn't say it out, who knows? The 3 women pulled the prince and concubine onto the boat, and when they saw the gold bars in the hands of the prince, although they were puzzled, they did not express curiosity. They were so old that they could only punting on the boat to see if they were not what a scheming and ambitious person. Mu Yangling and Chi Heiran glared at the 5 children, and warned, "Just wait for me, let's change clothes first, and then we will go ashore, don't be mischievous anymore, you know." The little lion poked the tiger's head, and the tiger asked immediately, "Will father and mother beat us?" He looked at the 2 of them eagerly. Chi Heiran was afraid that if he said beating, a few children would be able to jump down again, so he hurriedly said, "I won't beat you." Hudu heaved a sigh of relief, turned around and said to the 4 of them, "Don't worry, Daddy said he won't beat us up." Xiaobao wanted to cover Hudu's mouth. Why did he say it on the spot? Both Xiaoxiang and Xiaoan looked at the tiger's head sadly, wishing to tell him right away that beatings are not the only punishment, only the little lion simply cheered excitedly, and the 2 brothers held hands and walked on the deck together, sighing, "Today is really a false alarm, you see, I can also use idioms." Tiger-headed and star-eyed, "You are so powerful," the prince brother only said it once and you will remember it. Everyone. Although the money in the treasury is important, the education of the sons is equally important. Chi Heiran and Mu Yangling unanimously put family affairs ahead of state affairs. After the 2 changed their clothes, they quickly propped the boat back to the shore, planning to carry the children down to educate them. As soon as the boat landed, Xiao Xia hurried up, seeing Xiaoan who was safe and sound felt at ease. Although the guard who came back said that Xiaoan was safe and sound, he still had to see her with his own eyes before his heart could be completely at peace. Mu Yangling extended his hand to Xiaoan, but turned to Xiao Xia, supported her and said, "Are you okay? Why is your face so pale?" Xiao Xia forced a smile and said, "It's okay, I was just scared." She knelt down and hugged Xiaoan in her arms, but when she was about to stand up, her eyes went dark, and she lost consciousness all at once. Fortunately, Mu Yangling kept supporting her so that she didn't fall down. "Ma'am," Grandma Xia hurried over to support her. Mu Yangling hugged her up, and said to Grandma Xia, "Someone call Imperial Physician Wang to Wangqingxuan." Wangqingxuan is the closest courtyard to the East Lake. Mu Yangling carried Mrs. Xia directly to the main room of Wangqingxuan. Physician Wang trotted over. Seeing that Mrs. Xia's complexion was not good, he didn't dare to delay, so he quickly took out the pulse pillow. "Take her pulse." The little lion and the tiger head held Xiaoan's hand from left to right, and comforted him, "Don't worry, with us here, your mother will be fine." Xiaoan tiptoed to look at the bed, worried, "Will my mother ignore me?" "No, my mother has never been reluctant to talk to me." The little lion patted his chest confidently. Hudu said, "If you quarrel with her, she will talk to you." Xiaobao and Xiaoxiang grabbed the 2 of them and said in a low voice, "Shut up, didn't you see that, Aunt is going to beat you." Dr. Wang put down his hands, turned around and asked Nanny Xia a few questions, feeling very helpless in his heart, saying that he is an imperial doctor, right? The medical skill is also one of the best in the imperial hospital. At the beginning, I followed King Rongjun for the health of the masters of the palace, but in fact, the most pulses he has taken over the years are Zimai, and he also recuperates the body for Duke Angguo. The only chance for the king of the county to see a doctor is the ping and pulse once a month. Physician Wang turned to look at the worried Rongjun Wang and his wife, and said, "My lord, my concubine, Mrs. N's pulse is a happy pulse, and the days are still shallow, so the nuns didn't realize that today they were frightened by fear. Take care of yourself, it will be fine after a while of recuperation, and the next official will prescribe her a prescription for convulsions and miscarriage." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 858. Chi Heiran opened his mouth wide, but Zijin had just left. He came back to his senses, immediately strode out, and called a guard, "Hurry up and catch up with Nkuagong, Tell him about Nkuagong's wife's pregnancy, hurry up. The guard led the order and rushed away. Mu Yangling was also very happy, and asked Li Shun to get the medicine and boil it herself. When she turned around and saw the 5 children standing in the room with their eyes wide open, she pulled Xiao into the bed and said to him, "Come on, make peace with your mother, say goodbye to your brother." Xiao An's eyes widened. "Fourth aunt, do I want to separate from mother?" Mu Yangling touched his head gently and smiled, "Since your mother is fine, the next step is to settle your accounts. I think you may have to separate for a while." Seeing the smile on her face, the 5 children shuddered. Huda shouted unconvinced, "You said you wouldn't beat us." Mu Yangling asked, "When did I say that?" The children opened their mouths wide and looked at Chi Heiran, who had just walked in unison. Their eyes could not help revealing the grievance of accusation. The adults are so cunning. What the father, 4th uncle, said is not the same as the mother, 4th uncle, and, said, is it too bad? Chi Heiran was confused, turned his head and asked Mu Yangling, "What's wrong with them?" "It's nothing." Mu Yangling held 2 of them in one hand, stretched out his foot and kicked Xiaobao, who was still standing, and said, "Get out for me." Madame Xia looked at the son who was being carried by the princess, and then at the wife who was lying on the bed. After all, she gritted her teeth and said nothing. The son is too courageous. If he dared to dive today, he might set fire tomorrow. Well, the Duke is not here now, and the madam is soft-tempered and loves the child blindly. This child needs the help of the prince and princess to teach. Mu Yangling carried the 5 children with drooping heads back to the main courtyard, put them in the courtyard, walked around the 5 of them twice, then pointed to Xiaobao and asked, "Xiaobao, tell me, what is this, what is going on?" Chi Heiran sat on the stone bench beside him and watched them. They rescued people as soon as they came back, and then Xiao Xia fainted. Until now, he still doesn't know how the children ran to the center of the lake, and they were still kneeling outside. The servant in charge. But Chi Heiran and Mu Yangling are not in a hurry. Not only do they have to serve the children, but they also need to know what they can play with and what they can't. They can't stay among the children all the time. A few children are allowed to go swimming in the deep water area, but they haven't stopped them, so they haven't fulfilled their responsibilities. So neither of the husband and wife paid any attention to the slaves kneeling outside. The 2 planned to finish the trial of the children first. Naturally, the servants will be punished if they make mistakes, but the mistakes made by the children should also be punished. When they made a mistake, they were replaced by their subordinates, and they will do things even more unscrupulously in the future. Xiao Bao drooped his head and said, "We want to pick lotus pods." Mu Yangling's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. "Why do these children only want to pick lotus pods?" "The 4th aunt disagrees, so we want to wait until you are not at home, so that no one will stop us." Mu Yangling laughed out of temper, "It's so witty." The 4 children all heard the sarcasm and anger in Mu Yangling's tone, and they all bowed their heads in silence. Only the tiger head straightened his chest stupidly and showed off, "Mother, this is what we came up with, not you said, as long as there is I'm here, so you don't want to go into the water? Then it's okay when you're not here." The little lion quickly pulled his hand to signal him to shut up. Little Bao and Little Bear thought this brother was so stupid, so Little Treasure pulled the little lion and winked at him. Chi Heiran, who was sitting on the side, held his forehead. His son was stupid, and being a father was also embarrassing. Mu Yangling was pissed off by the tiger's head, and shouted angrily, "It's still my fault. So should I guard you every step of the way?" Little Only pulled the lion cub, and the 2 of them rushed up to hold Mu Yangling's hand, and pleaded for mercy. "4th aunt, don't be angry, the tiger head has always been stupid, we will help you teach him a lesson." "Mother, don't worry, I will definitely watch over my brother in the future and prevent him from being stupid." Mu Yangling became even angrier when he heard the 2 of them evading the important ones, and hearing the crazed address of the little lion, don't try to evade the important ones and just ignore the important ones. Am I angry because of what Hutu said? I'm angry. Why are you so disrespectful? Don't worry, you ran to the center of the lake, don't you know you will die? You are all the treasures of your parents. If something happens to you, what will your parents do? Mu Yangling drank the two children, go back and stand up for me. Xiaoan and the little lion ran back immediately, and pulled the tiger head to the middle to stand, and the two reached out to grab the hand of the tiger head. Hutu was very angry, and shook the hands of the two of them away. The two friends said he was stupid. He obviously won today, and he Kong arrived earlier than his elder brother. Why call him stupid? Xiaoan and the little lion became anxious, and asked in a low voice, what's wrong with you? Hold hands, what if you say the wrong thing again? Hutu said angrily, you say I'm stupid, I won't be with you in the future. Xiaoan said anxiously, we didn't mean it, we just ran up to make my fourth aunt angry, and then I had a chance to pull you into the middle. Xiaobao and Xiaoxiang turned their heads to look at Xiaoan, then looked back at the fourth aunt, mother, with fire-breathing eyes, and immediately lowered their heads as if they didn't see it. Mu Yangling suppressed her anger. She knew that if she pursued this matter, she would definitely not be able to ask anything today. She turned her head and asked Xiaobao, then, I clearly ordered you not to go to the deep water area, how did you persuade the guards to let you go? Xiaobao said blankly, we didn't say we were going to swim. Mu Yangling narrowed his eyes just like Chi Heiran. Xiaobao said, we told them that we were going to have a picnic on the small island in the center of the lake, and they came out with a painting boat, and we specially asked them to walk from the lotus bushes, so that we could get there quickly by jumping off. Mu Yangling said that a few children are not allowed to go swimming in the deep water area, but he can't help a few children to go to the small island to play. Even Chi Heiran often takes a few children to the island to grill fish and barbecue in a boat. Mu Yangling, I have also been there a few times, so the servants are used to this and don't think it is also prohibited. In fact, Mu Yangling did not prohibit it. Because there are 5 children this time, and there is His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, Zhu Liang specially arranged a boat for them. It was also left over from the Qin Prime Minister's mansion before. It was big, gorgeous, and safe, even if it encountered strong winds and waves. Who knew that a few children did not encounter strong winds and waves, and jumped down by themselves when they reached the center of the lake? The bodyguards who followed the 5 children also boarded the boat, and even the hidden guards hid in a small corner of the boat. Everything was fine. The 5 children were chasing and fighting on the boat. It's okay to make trouble, but when they reach the center of the lake near the lotus, the children stand in different corners, and then the little bear whistles, and the 5 children jump into the water together. Not to mention that the guards have no time to react, even the hidden guards only had time to grab their clothes corners. Xiaobao's hidden guard was the fastest, and when he caught him, he fell into the water. Although he was exposed, he hugged him anyway, and then Xiaobao couldn't splash twice in the water, so he was caught by the dark way sent back to the ship. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 859. This time all the hidden guards were exposed, and the guards who knew water also went into the water one after another to arrest people, no, to save people. Originally each was in charge of their own masters, but Xiaoan and Xiaoxiang had cramps as soon as they entered the water. Xiaoxiang was not far from the two of them. The hidden guard was not far from the little lion, so he hugged the little lion without thinking about it. When the little bear carried Xiaoan into the boat and looked back, he found that the tiger's head was gone. Thinking of Xiaoan and the little lion getting cramps as soon as they entered the water, he naturally had bad associations, and was anxious and angry at the moment, so he cried and shouted tiger head. So, where was the tiger head at that time? Everyone's eyes moved to Hutu. Chi Heiran asked curiously, how did you escape everyone's search? Huda straightened his chest, raised his head proudly and said, "I knew they would catch me, especially the uncles of the hidden guards." "Dad, didn't you say that they can do everything? Then they must know how to swim." "How can I? What about showing my head? I was arrested as soon as I showed my head." The hidden guards hiding in the dark burst into tears. "Second young master, should we thank you for your praise? Then how do you breathe in water?" "Lu Wei," Hu Tiou asked suspiciously, "didn't mother teach dad?" Chi Heiran turned his head and glared at Mu Yangling, while Mu Yangling glared at the tiger's head. This kid learned his skills and didn't use them on the right path, but he used them in this kind of place. When Mu Yangling and Chi Heiran talked about the importance of being able to swim, they once said that learning to swim will not only prevent you from being drowned in water, but if you encounter bridges such as chasing and killing, you will not be drowned when you encounter rivers, lakes, and ponds. It can also hide from everyone's search with water. As long as you can find reeds or hollow things, you can breathe underwater and avoid hunting. The four children were very interested in this. Except for Xiaobao, who was in the palace, the four children tried to pull the reed with the help of everyone, but no one thought that it would be used in actual combat. He hid one on his body, and he didn't even raise his head when he entered the water. He just dived a certain distance and took out the reed pole to breathe. He breathed while swimming towards the lotus bush. Xiaobao looked down after being rescued on the boat, and at first he could see the tiger's head in the water, but he couldn't find anyone after a while, so he took it for granted that the tiger's head sank there. In fact, this kid remembered that if he went a little lower on the water surface, the people above would be able to spot him, so he deliberately went downstream for a certain distance, and then started to swim forward. Fortunately, the reed pole was long enough. Although only the length of half a finger was exposed in the end. Everyone is just looking for someone who will notice a reed. What's more, the water surface was messy at that time, the tiger's head hadn't surfaced for a long time, and everyone was flustered, so it was even more impossible for them to notice. The tiger head swam all the way to the lotus bushes, and there is no need to worry about being exposed when entering the lotus bushes, because the lotus leaves are dense and layer upon layer obstructing the line of sight. He just climbed onto a big lotus leaf and sat down, holding a lotus pole tightly to stabilize his body. This kid was only 2 years old, and although he ate a lot, it only weighed about 20 kgs. There were 2 lotus leaves stacked under the big lotus leaf, so although the tiger's head was unsteady when he sat on it, he still sat firmly. If Chi Heiran hadn't been frightened later and fell into the water with a thump, I'm afraid that when everyone found him, they would see a golden boy sitting on a lotus leaf. The children agreed before they set off that this time they are going to compete whoever reaches the lotus bush the fastest, and whoever wins can take a toy from the others, so at this time Huda looked at his parents eagerly and said, "Father, Mother, you have to ask them to give me the toy." Just now the little lion said that I caused everyone to worry, so the toy is gone. Humph, I think he just wants to renege on his debt. If he reneges on his debt, I won't let him be my brother gone. Mu Yangling only felt itchy hands. She ran into the house and took out the ruler that had been hanging as an ornament, but found that the ruler was very thick. Thinking about it, she was afraid of breaking them. She took a look in the yard and pulled it out. Root twig. The children were frightened by Mu Yangling's ugly face and menacing aura, and they all stood aside with their necks shrunk. Mu Yangling tore off the branch, regardless of Chi Heiran, who was standing aside, hesitant to speak, pulled the tiger's head and beat him. The tiger's head cried out wow, and found that his mother was really big, so he burst into tears with a wow, stand up. Do you know it's wrong? Do you still dare to dive in the future? Do you still dare to do such a dangerous thing? The 5 children got together and were all beaten by Mu Yangling. At most, the 2 children cried loudly and shouted, "We know we were wrong." The servants kneeling outside were startled when they heard the cries of ghosts and wolves. The 5 little masters were all beaten up, and they will definitely not get well. Chi Heiran finally returned to the palace with Xiaobao, who was sobbing and red-eyed. He had to discuss with his elder brother about the gold at the bottom of the lake. They had to find someone reliable to go into the water to have a look. Chi Heiran directly brought the child in front of the emperor. Chi Xiaoyuan looked at his son with a serious expression. He already knew what happened in the palace. As soon as he received the news, he was going to leave the palace, but when he arrived at the gate of the palace, the secret guard came to report that the children had been found, so he came back again. He had been waiting for Heiran to bring the child back, but he didn't expect to wait until the afternoon, so he knew that he had been beaten by seeing his son. It's good to be beaten, lest he can't help but do it again. Chi Xiaoyuan took off his trousers, saw the red stripe on his buttocks, and asked Chi Heiran, "Did you beat me?" "No, Aling did it." Chi Xiaoyuan nodded, "Good fight." The palm of his hand hit Xiaobao's butt twice, and Xiaobao cried out with a wow. Although Chi Xiaoyuan felt distressed, he showed no expression on his face. He put the child in front of him and asked, "Do you still dare to do it in the future?" Xiaobao shook his head and cried softly, "Don't dare." Chi Xiaoyuan said in a deep voice, "You are an elder brother, you should take the lead, but you led the younger brothers to do such a dangerous thing. Fortunately, the tiger head is fine today. If something happens to the tiger head, where do you go to find a tiger head to compensate you, uncle and aunt?" Xiaobao looked at his father with red and swollen eyes, and sobbed, "I know I was wrong." Chi Xiaoyuan patted his head and asked, "Are you scared?" Xiaobao nodded. "If you are scared, you will be punished. Go back and copy the Analects of Confucius 10 times. When you finish copying, you can go out of the palace again." Xiaobao walked out with his head down. Eunuch Wan personally led the prince back to Cunning Palace. His Royal Highness's buttocks were injured, so the empress had to know. Chi Heiran waited for all the maids and eunuchs in the palace to leave before sitting next to his eldest brother, took out the few pieces of gold from his arms, and said in a low voice, "Brother, Aling found this at the bottom of the lake. The reborn wife is farming." Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 860. Chi Xiaoyuan stood up in surprise holding the gold nugget, the bottom of the lake. Qin Fang threw the gold and silver at the bottom of the lake, and the money from the treasury. "I haven't had time to ask someone to go down to check," Chi Heiran said, "I went to patronize a few children at that time." Chi Xiaoyuan sat back in the chair, tightened the gold nugget in his hand and said, "I remember that your lake is very big. If you just find a place to throw it down, it may be difficult to find it again." Aling found it by the side of the lotus. The box was deep in the mud. "If it wasn't for Aling who wanted to throw me out and bounce me into the mud, I probably wouldn't have found the box underneath." And I told about the accidental discovery of the box, saying, "At that time, Aling said that she only touched one box, and because of too much force, that box broke. People go down and see." "Brother," Chi Heiran lowered his voice and said, "I don't think this matter should be made public for the time being. We will secretly pick up the things and put them directly in your private treasury. If the national treasury needs to be used, then you can just borrow it from the private treasury. Anyway, the national treasury it is not once or twice to borrow your private treasury." Chi Xiaoyuan rolled his eyes, "You mean to hide it from everyone and let them continue to search for the gold and silver left by Qin Fang?" Chi Heiran nodded, "Everyone knows that Qin Fang emptied Dazhu before leaving, and our daki is just an empty shelf. It all depends on the three of us moving here and there. If it is reported that we have found the treasury money, the people below people may go from frugality to luxury, and it may make Xixia and Dajin more wary of us, and the relationship between our three countries has just eased. Dachi is poor, and the quality of soldiers is close to that of Xixia Dazhu. If Dachi becomes rich, what about the quality of soldiers? This is undoubtedly a danger to Dajin and Xixia, and the current situation of the three kingdoms may be broken. Xixia and Dajin stared at Daki, but the two countries also coveted each other and fought a big war fiercely, so the three countries are temporarily maintaining stability. Although there are small conflicts on the border, they are not big. In order not to anger each other, all restrain soldiers not to kill as much as possible. Although Chi Heiran is a general, he doesn't want a war, at least not before Da Qi is ready. Chi Ziyuan also quickly figured out the joints. He said, "All right, let someone salvage it quietly, don't make a fuss about it." Chi Heiran was distressed. Where can I find someone who is reliable and good at swimming? He is not in the capital all year round, where can he find these people? Chi Ziyuan smiled and said, "I will arrange this matter, you just arrange the servants in the mansion well, don't let them notice." Chi Ziyuan quickly sent 20 people to Chi Heiran, and if there were more people, there would be a lot of noise. And the servants in the mansion soon received an order that no one was allowed to go to the East Lake, especially the little masters were strictly restricted. As long as they appeared in the Wanqingxian, they would be expelled. The servants accepted the ban as a matter of course. Everyone knew that the prince and concubine were frightened by the 5 little masters falling into the water before, so it is only natural to ban the lake now. And soon, it was reported that the princess wanted to pull out the lotus bushes. The young masters jumped into the water just to pick the lotus pods. What is the use? The servants really wanted to tell the concubine that the lotus planted by Prime Minister Qin was for ornamental purposes. Every summer, the lotus bloomed one after another, and when the red and white contrasted each other, it was as beautiful as a fairyland. Back then, Prime Minister Qin spent a lot of money on planting this kind of lotus. But no one rushed to say such things to Mu Yangling when she was furious. But at this time Mu Yangling also said distressedly, "Did you really pull out all these lotus?" "Only pluck some," Chi Heiran said, "they are here to fish for gold, not really to pluck lotuses, but it's not good if they don't pluck them at all, and they can't deceive people. Then I'll ask someone to ask who buys this kind of lotus. We sell it to them. I heard that this kind of lotus can be worth a lot of money. 10 knots of lotus root are worth 1 tael of silver. I asked the master who tends the flowers and plants. It is now the beginning of autumn, this kind of lotus root can be transplanted, we sell it cheaper, and it can be sold for a tael of silver on the 15th day. Let me declare first, this money belongs to us and does not belong to the state treasury." Chi Heiran refused to accept it and said, "Why do we have to sell it for 15 taels of silver? Just sell it for 10 taels of silver." Mu Yangling twitched the corner of his mouth and said, "We have too many products, and the other party will definitely lower the price." Chi Heiran snorted coldly, "Who dares to lower the price of the master? All right, don't worry about this matter, let Zhu Liang handle it." The master just took a look. There are 2 or 3 small lotus roots under a lotus tree. Delicious, but also too small. Mu Yangling laughed and said, "This lotus is for ornamental purposes, and it doesn't produce lotus roots. I'll ask people to plant meat lotus roots after my anger subsides. I can harvest a lot of lotus roots every winter." Chi Heiran nodded. While the two were talking, people who sank in the water came up one after another and reported, "My lord, my concubine, there are many boxes along the line of lotus bushes. I opened them and found that they are full of gold and silver, including the treasury. Official seals, as well as privately minted gold and silver." Chi Heiran and Mu Yangling looked at each other. It seems that there are not only the treasury money here, but also the money he was greedy for before. Now the national treasury is full. One must know that Qinfang is as rich as a country. At the beginning they found a batch in the garden. The amount was quite large, but it was far from enough compared to his embezzlement. Except for the money he spent for pleasure, it must be there is still a lot of money left. Chi Heiran ordered, "Immediately ask someone to put on a rope and pull it up." Qinfang obviously calculated that nearly 1/2 of the east side of the East Lake is planted with lotus, and along the line where the lotus bushes meet the lake surface, the boxes are thrown about 20 meters from the shore and the depth there is about 20 meters. Reached 7 or 8 meters. But the lotus bushes that are 1 meter away are only 3 or 4 meters away. Obviously, Qin Fang had calculated it when the East Lake was excavated. Not to mention that these ornamental lotus bushes are not cleaned up. Even if someone pulls these lotuses, they will not find the sunken boxes next to them, because they are covered by mud, and there is still a depth of 3 or 4 meters in the middle. The child dived into the water, and Mu Yangling was bounced into the mud by the momentum by accident. I am afraid that these boxes will never be found in his life. Who would have thought that Qin Fang would throw money in the lake? It's even more perverted than him making gold into floor tiles, isn't it? 20 people worked hard for almost a month before all the boxes were pulled up, and then they were transported out under the pretext of transporting the load. There is no way, there are too many things, and the water is too deep, and the water pressure is also strong. They will be tired from working back and forth. Chi Heiran doesn't want to cause death because of this, so he always works for 2 hours and rests for 1 hour, and stops working when it gets dark. But the speed of the 20 people is not slow. A lot of boxes were pulled up in a month, and at first they were excited when they opened it and saw the golden and blinding gold inside, but after a month, everyone became numb, and then deeply felt Qin Fang's greed. This money is the fat of the people. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 861. Chi Heiran was very happy counting the gold. This is equivalent to Daki's tax for 2 years. With this money, what do we have to worry about? Fortunately, Zijin has been managing the private treasury of the big brother, and now we have to carry the gold. It's very simple to get in. No one knows how much money is in the private treasury of the elder brother, and where the money came from. Mu Yangling was also counting the money. She was counting the money for selling lotus roots. As Chi Heiran said, no one dared to lower the price of Rongjun Wangfu, so the lotus roots they dug up to cover up sold for a good price. The lotus root is less than 1/10 of the lotus root, but the income is quite a lot, and because the lotus root is dug out from the royal palace of Rongjun, everyone knows that the variety of lotus is very good, and Qin Xiang spent a lot of time arranging his garden. Hard, thus causing looting. The capital has never been short of rich and elegant people. If Princess Rongjun wants to sell it, someone must buy it, so the price is rising steadily. This is the first time Mu Yangling has made money without hard work, so he is very happy to share the money he earned with Chi Heiran. Chi Heiran looked at the money on the couch, frowned and said, "I didn't miss your money, but it's only a few hundred taels of money. See how happy you are. It's for nothing." "Who said it was for nothing?" Chi Heiran said unconvinced. "This prince's mansion was earned by the Lord, no matter who owned it before. Every plant and tree in it now belongs to us. How can it be regarded as white? Got it?" It made sense for Mu Yangling to hear what he said, so he nodded and said, "You're right, but I'm still happy, but it's a pity that it's not popular to sell cut flowers now, otherwise I'll take these precious flowers next summer. If you cut the lotus and sell it, you can make a lot of money." "My lord didn't spare your money. How did you get into the eyes of money now?" Chi Heiran said distressedly. "You don't have to spend money to raise a child. And my desire for money is only average. You haven't seen anyone who is really addicted to money. Then tell me what it's like to be a real money addict. Also, when have you ever met a real money addict? Why didn't you know?" The two grew up together, and there was no secret between each other. How many rabbits Mu Yangling hunted before, and now he knows how many arrows he shoots in the martial arts hall every day. If she wants to meet strangers, she will definitely not be able to hide it. Mu Yangling rolled his eyes and said, Don't you like me seeing interesting people in books? The two quarreled and put money into the box. Before going to sleep, Chi-Heiran asked incomprehensibly, "It's obviously more convenient to change into banknotes, why do you have to change into silver?" Mu Yangling had already closed his eyes and was about to fall asleep. Hearing this, he turned over and said, "It's only fun to count the money. The silver bills are not the same as the RMB. It has long been unable to arouse the excitement in my heart." Chi-Heiran leaned over to look at Mu Yangling, and asked, "What coin?" Mu Yangling had already fallen asleep with his mouth shut. Chi-Heiran didn't take it seriously, kissed her on the forehead, lay down next to her and said, "Counting money is fun, but moving around is also tiring." It's a pity that Mu Yangling couldn't hear his complaint. All the gold, silver, and treasures at the bottom of the lake were pulled up. 20 people searched back and forth again, and returned to report after confirming that there was nothing missing. Mu Yangling lifted the ban on East Lake and began to ask people to plant lotus roots in the lake. Everyone. So the princess spent a lot of trouble pulling out the valuable lotus just to grow cheap meat lotus roots? Although only about a tenth of it was pulled out, it was very damaging to the beauty, especially in summer. Everyone only felt that a good lotus pond was ruined by the princess. But Xiaoxiang and others cheered happily when they heard that the planted lotus could dig lotus root in winter, expressing that they liked it very much. Everyone, sure enough, we should not place too much hope on the aesthetics of the young masters of the palace. Xiaoxia originally wanted to persuade Mu Yangling, but seeing that she had pulled out the lotus root, she couldn't tell her to buy lotus root and plant it, so the palace would become a joke. So she didn't say anything, and silently supported Mu Yangling's actions. Mu Yangling still strictly forbids a few people to go to the East Lake, and said to them, "It's useless even if you cheer. First, the lotus that has only been planted now will definitely not produce lotus roots this winter. Go down and pull it out, and stay on the ground honestly. If I find out that you dare to sneak into the East Lake to play in the water, I will beat you up." I believe you still have a deep memory of the fried pork with bamboo shoots a month ago, right? The 4 children only felt the tightness of their buttocks, and they couldn't help shivering. Everyone was beaten badly that time. Among them, the little bear and the tiger head were the worst. Each of them got 5 more strokes. The elder brother took the younger brothers to take risks, because the tiger head made everyone worry about him. So the memory of the two is deeper. Almost as soon as Mu Yangling's voice fell, Huda shouted, "We must not sneak around." The little bear fought for their rights. "Then can we play in the small swimming pool?" "No," Mu Yangling said, "as punishment, you are not allowed to play in water this year. If you dare to do such dangerous things in the future, the punishment will be doubled." The 4 children all hung their heads and lined up to go out. Xiaoan ran back halfway, raised her head and asked, "Fourth aunt, Grandma wants to pick me up to play, should I go?" Mu Yangling asked, "Then do you want to go?" Xiaoan quickly shook her head, pouted and said, "It's not fun at all, those children stare at me and don't play with me, and I don't understand what Grandma and the others are saying." Mu Yangling patted his head and said, "Then don't go, follow the tiger head and the little lion to practice martial arts, and I'll tell your grandmother." Xiaoan suddenly became distressed, and asked with a wrinkled face, "But I don't want to practice martial arts, what should I do?" Mu Yangling thought about it for a while. Xiaoan didn't have the talent to practice martial arts. This child is indeed Fan Zijian's child. The tiger head and the little lion are 7 months younger than him, and can squat on horseback for a stick of incense, but this kid can't even 1/3 of the sticks of incense could not hold on. But this kid is very talented in literacy. Xiaoxiang can barely read half of the 3-character classic now, and he has to read it from the book. This kid can already recite half of the 3-character classic. Don't ask her why it is half. Because this kid hadn't learned it at all, he memorized it after listening to Little Bear stuttering every day. The fact is so hurtful. If this is the case, There is no need to force the child to practice martial arts. Anyway, this kid will definitely pass the imperial examination like his father in the future. Okay, if you don't practice martial arts, you won't practice martial arts. My fourth aunt will find you a teacher who can enlighten you. You are 3 years old, and you can start enlightening, but you still have to do some children's exercises. Practice exercises to keep your body strong, so that you can grow up tall and strong, you know. Will the exercises be hard? It's not hard, Mu Yangling said, it's almost like dancing. I'll let Dr. Wang teach you, okay? From now on, you go to study every morning after you finish practicing, and you can play together after Hutu and the others practice martial arts. Xiaoan agreed happily. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 862. Little Bear was sent to the palace by Qi Heiran to study with Xiaobao, but within 2 days, the boy rolled all over the floor and wanted to go home to follow his husband. Xiaoxiang's husband was found by Qi Xiaoyuan. Although he is a talented person, he is still far behind the prince's huge team of teachers, so he is very curious why Xiaoxiang would rather give up the opportunity to study with Xiaobao than go out of the palace. You know, when these two boys knew that they could study together, they were so excited that they didn't sleep all night, but it's only been a few days, and the freshness is over. Adhering to the principle that the issue of education is a major issue, Qi Xiaoyuan carried the two children to the imperial study room, and asked, "Are you two brothers having a conflict?" The two shook their heads. Satisfied, Qi Xiaoyuan turned his head and asked Little Bear, "So Mr. Yuan taught you better than the gentleman in the palace? If this is the case, he will invite several gentlemen in the palace to learn from Mr. Yuan's teaching methods." Little Xiang still shook his head. The teachers in the palace teach very complicated things, but the explanations are very good. When talking to Brother Xiaobao, the explanations are a little more advanced, but when talking to me, they are easy to understand. Some teachers will also tell me some short stories, more knowledgeable than Mr. Yuan. Then why don't you want to study in the palace? Qi Xiaoyuan asked suspiciously. Little Xiang drooped his head and said, "Gongli goes to school too early, every day at 7 o'clock, 7 o'clock, classes are closed at noon, 12 o'clock, and classes are resumed at 2 o'clock, 1:30 p.m., and there is no rest at noon. Moreover, the palace is closed every 10 days, and 1 day is off every 10 days. When I was at home, I got up at 2:30, 5:30, and practiced martial arts. At Shenzhen, 8 o'clock, I had more time to go to my husband's place. I study until 2:30 noon, 11:30, take a lunch break after eating, and go to class before it is 2 p.m. When I woke up, I was sent to the palace as soon as I opened my eyes, and then I went to class. Except for martial arts class, I have no time to practice martial arts. Uncle Huang, my father said that martial arts should be persevering. How can I be a general like this?" Little Xiang looked at the emperor with tears in his eyes, and said, "The most important thing is that I study for 5 days at home and rest for 2 days, so I have free time to do many things, but I can't do it in the palace." Xiaobao also looked at his father with tears in his eyes, and said, "Father, I also want to rest for 5 days and 2 days." Qi Xiaoyuan opened his mouth wide, stared at the two children, and finally yelled at the little bear, "Your father actually let you be so negligent in studying? 1 day off every 5 days? You can ask Uncle Fan, how often did he go to school when he was young? Being able to rest for 10 days is already the best treatment I can give at the risk of verbal criticism from historians. You know, whether in ethnology or in the academy, students are on monthly leave. Because of the increased mundane affairs to be dealt with, those who pass the examination can take half a month or 10 days off, but children like Xiaobao have a monthly rest, 1 day off in January, and others unless there are major holidays. We'll take a few more days off." In order to make it easier for his son to go out of the palace to experience folk life, he had a long dispute with Prince Xiaofu and others before deciding on the rule of a 10-day break. Now Xiao Xiang actually thinks that the 10-day break is too long to study and asks for 5 days and 2 days off. Qi Xiaoyuan felt that Heiran could not be allowed to spoil the child like this, otherwise even the best child would be spoiled by him. Qi Xiaoyuan said with a straight face, "Since it's not the gentleman's problem, then you can continue to study in the palace. Your husband has already been given to Xiaoan. Do you want to go back to school with Xiaoan?" Little Xiang said, "I don't mind taking my brother to study." Qi Xiaoyuan twitched the corners of his mouth, and couldn't help but said, "I'm afraid you will feel bad when Xiaoan catches up with you." Little Xiang looked at Qi Xiaoyuan sadly. Qi Xiaoyuan said indifferently, "I heard that you can read the 3-character classic from the book." Bear nodded proudly. Qi Xiaoyuan sighed, "It's really rare, Xiaoan can already memorize the entire Sanzi I Jing. Little Xiang opened his mouth wide, and Qi Xiaoyuan stroked his head and said, "Although you are not as good as Xiaoan, you are much better than your father. When your father was your age, he could only write his own name." Thinking of his father's current achievements, Little Bear instantly became confident. Only Xiao Bao looked at his father and thought to himself, "Is it really okay for you to destroy the image of fourth uncle in Xiao Xiang's heart like this?" Xiao Xiang didn't want to be hurt by studying with Xiaoan, but he also didn't want to study in the palace, so he went to his mother after leaving the palace and asked her to find him another husband. "Mother, I don't sleep much, and I won't grow taller in the future. So you take me back to study, and find me a husband, and I won't fight with Xiaoan." Xiao An's husband was arranged by Qi Heiran. When Xiao Xiang went to the palace, Mr. Yuan was free, because he was the husband Qi Xiaoyuan found after a lot of effort, so Qi Heiran was not willing to dismiss him. Let Mr. Yuan teach Xiaoan. Now Xiaoan spends most of his time tracing characters. He is young and has limited things to learn. Mu Yangling feels that Mr. Yuan is more than enough to take care of 2 children alone, so Mu Yangling said, "You can learn with Xiaoan, and change to another one. Not only does it take time, sir, you also have to readapt." Xiao Xiang said in a depressed mood, "But Xiaoan is too powerful, I'm afraid I won't be able to keep up with him, obviously I belong to my brother." Mu Yangling laughed and said, "Xiaoan is born smart, this is incomparable, you just need to do your own thing well, if you are not talented enough in reading, then work harder. But no matter how diligent you are, you can't compare to Xiaoan, what should you do?" Mu Yangling didn't expect his son to be so sensitive, so he pulled him to him and said, "Why do you have to surpass Xiaoan in reading? Your talent is in martial arts. Didn't you say that you will to be a great general? But Xiao Bao will be the #1 scholar in the future, and the direction of your efforts is different. Of course, you don't need to compare them together. Xiaoan will not compete with the tiger-headed lion and them in martial arts." Little Bear's eyes lit up. "Yes, Tiger Head and Little Lion are better than Xiaoan in Kung Fu, and they are younger than Xiaoan. So you have to find the right person for comparison. You and Xiaoan have different ideals and goals, so naturally you don't need to compare them together." The little bear hugged his mother's neck and said, "Then you go and tell Uncle Huang, let me go home and study, I don't want to go to the palace to study, I don't have enough time to sleep." Mu Yangling also felt that the time to study in the palace was too early. This kid had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to enter the palace. After finishing his homework in the evening, it was 8 o'clock late, and he went to bed at 9 o'clock after washing. Just 7 or 8 hours, children usually sleep for about 10 hours. So she nodded without thinking about it, thinking that this was just a matter of letting Qi Heiran enter the palace to say something. But at this time, Qi Xiaoyuan was scolding Qi Heiran like a dog in the imperial study, and finally ordered, "Little Xiang must go to school in the palace, so as not to be taught badly by you."